Greetings, pilgrims. Welcome to another episode of the Polygon Pilgrimage. And today, as usual, I've got something pretty exciting for you. I've been working really hard on this, so I appreciate all of the help from our patrons and from all the other people I asked to help me test it out. And I appreciate your patience with how long this has taken, but we have something pretty phenomenal here. So, as you know, when you're playing a Battle Royale game, you want to have the ability to, at any time, hit the M key or any of the keys, normal keys, M, for the map. You get your overall world map, kind of like what this looks like here, right? Well, in order to do that functionality, which is coming next episode, but to get there, we need to first have an image to display, right? We need to have the map image. So typically what you want to do is essentially just take a big screenshot of the whole map with all of your buildings and stuff on it. So here I have some example buildings, and these are just cubes that I've put on the map just to kind of show you, assortments of buildings, what it would kind of look like. So the idea is you want to take an overall screenshot of your whole map, your terrain, plus all of the buildings and everything that's on there so that you can actually see what's going on. Save it as one huge image, and that's what we're going to use next episode to do the whole scrolling in and out and, pan around, all that kind of stuff. So for today, I want to show you this little utility that I built for you, which will help you just do this in just a few clicks, all right? So what you're going to need for this is, in your assets folder, you're going to have to create a screenshots folder, okay? So all you do is here down where it says assets, just right click, say create, and you're going to choose folder, top of the list here, folder, and name it screenshots. Just like that, capital S, and then all lowercase letters after that, all right? Then, in your world scene here, all you're going to need is an empty game object, so just right click, say create empty. You can call it whatever you want. You can put it wherever you want. But as a general rule, good practice, I put all of my stuff at 000 for the position and then name it something. And I named mine here World Map Generator, just like that. Okay? So I'll delete that. World Map Generator. And then you'll just click and drag and drop the script on here. This World Map Generator script. Okay? The rest of this, it tells you what you need. So if you hover over target camera, it's going to say, drag and drop your camera here. So in my scene here, and again, this is Unity 2019.2.15F1, and that's going to be the version I'm using for now. And I will roll with upgrades at certain points, but we're not going to just go the latest every time because I want to make sure it's not broken, don't have issues, but that's the version I'm using right now. And I'll put that in the video description for you, okay? So in the script here, it tells you, hey, drag and drop your camera. So I just did a file new scene, and this is using HDRP. So it comes with a main camera, a directional light, all these other things. So all I'm going to do for my script is click and drag my main camera and drop it right there. Okay. The camera height, this is a number you're going to have to play with, but this is the height above the terrain where you want the camera to exist so that it will capture everything. I noticed that with the camera being set to projection orthographic, if you don't set it to a certain height, the lighting gets really weird here. So for me, for this setup, my number here turned out to be 2472. I just clicked and dragged it. Now, this terrain is the free terrain asset thing that we've used in the past. If you go back to the very first video of the Battle Royale series, this is just the standard terrain number 1. I just dragged and dropped it on here. See, terrain number 1. And if we look at the settings, if I go to the little cog wheel down here, these are the important settings we care about. Is 2500 by 2500 is the length and width of the terrain. And you'll notice that my position for the terrain, if you select the whole terrain, the position is at an offset. Pardon me. So minus 1250 by minus 1250 in both the X and the Z. So that means that the center of the world is right here where these two lines cross, and that's the very center of our terrain. And that's going to be a mandate we're going to make for the new videos, for the new revamp series, because we want everything to happen kind of at 000. Okay? So that's kind of a mandate. So you're going to have to offset your terrain. And what you do is you take these numbers here, the length and width, divide them in half. And that's what the numbers will have to be here and here. Typically, it'll have to be a minus, but it could be a positive number. So just try that. Try, for in this case, negative 1250 works, but I would try 1250. Like if I just do 1250, you'll see, oh, no, that's not right because here's where my center should be. So, okay, let me try negative 1250. And of course that works. Okay. So just in the future, any terrain, these two numbers, that's what you need to do here. All right, back to our script here. So then we set this number for the height. And again, you'll have to play with this number. I'll show you how a little bit later. Then here in terrain, my terrain says just drag and drop your terrain here. So click and drag just like that and drop it in there. That's it. Now, the last settings to choose is what is the final size of your master texture that you want in pixels. And I made this little drop down for you. So right now I'm only supporting 4096 or 8192. This is huge. 4096 is pretty big. So you can pick either one you want and then you just run the script. And I'll show you how to run the script right now. So once you have all this selected, you don't hit play actually to run this script. There's nothing that goes off of the start. When you do a start function, it does a lot of extra stuff in the scene we don't need. So I added a nice little handy feature here. So with this script, if you just right click on this little cog, and at the very bottom here it says generate world map image. So I'm going to click that. Now it's going to slow down a little bit here and it's going to look like nothing's happening. But there you go. You see my little cog wheel thing going there? That means it's working. And then when that goes away, you'll tell that it's done, right? And it will be done here in just a second. It doesn't take very long, even at the huge image size. There you go. It's already done. So in order to check our image, I just kind of click over here to kind of reset Unity and clear things out. And you'll see that the image will have appeared here. Mine was already there because I just ran it. But if we click on this image, two important things we need to do. Over here, these might not be set, so you're going to have to set these. So we've selected our image, and now over here in the inspector values, we want to change the maximum size to the maximum size possible, which is 8192, which is why we chose it. And then the compression, I'm going to say none, and then hit apply. And give it a second again. It's applying these settings. It's removing any compression because we're told it none. We want no compression. We want just the pure pixels of this massive image because that's what we need for our map, right? Now, later I'm going to have another version of this script which will allow you to break this up into tiny pieces because then you could take that and you could parse them out, and that's a more advanced topic for later on. Okay, so now our image is complete. So now let's take a look at it. So I open Photoshop and I've already got the image open here. You can see how big it is, but I'm going to close it and act like we didn't have it open, right? Now I'm going to go to my screenshots folder, and in Windows here I'm going to hit F5, or I'm going to right click and you can say refresh just to make sure it's the very latest data of this folder. Now here's our world map. So I'm just going to click and drag and open it. There we go. It's open and you can see our buildings and it looks like a nice cool map, right? So take a look at our size here. We're at 8.33%, right? So I'm going to zoom in on this little fortress or whatever these buildings are over here. Notice now I'm at 50%. Keep zooming, 66.7. Now we're at 100%. So this is how big this picture is we have all this room to work with, right? So anytime you do something like you draw a little path through here, or you have your buildings, and right now this is just a very basic lighting setup. So you could change this and have some shadows around your buildings onto the terrain, that kind of thing. So this is how you would make this really massive image. And in the next video, and maybe another one, when we do the script to allow you to do this kind of thing, to like zoom in and pan around, that kind of thing, right? We'll be adding like an overlay to this, which is the grid divided into numbered and lettered cells and that kind of thing, right? Okay, so let's go back and take a look at some of the other options, right? So our world map generator, this is perfect, this works. Again, you can choose these two sizes. I'll show you in the code in a moment how you could change those sizes if you wanted to. And now let's go and take a look at our camera. And what our camera does is a couple things very specific. So its position is going to be 0. The Y is going to be whatever that height is you choose. I'll show you that in a second. And then 0 again. And the rotation is 90 on the X. So we're going to pan the camera to look down, or tilt it rather down. Then in our settings here, we just have to set projection to be orthographic. The rest of this all gets set programmatically, like this size. But just in case you're interested, this size here, the size of our projection is in a half the total value of the width of the terrain. So our terrain is 2,500 across by 2,500 this way. So to get from the center point to the edge is half of that distance for our camera. So the size here is set to 1250. Now, one more very important thing to note before you run the script in order to generate a camera image that is square, the cameras normally come in like a rectangle shape, right? Rectangle projection. So what you need to do is in your game view here, so here's my game view, drop this down and it's going to say something like free aspect, 16 by 9. And if I change this, you'll see it makes these black bars, all that kind of stuff. We're going to need a projection that is a 1-to-1 ratio. So you can see here some of my other ones where I was testing things out. So I made this one called square, 1 by 1. And the way I did that was you click this drop down and hit the plus. And then in here you can call it something. So let's call this tutorial. So tutorial, tutorial. And then I'm going to change this to aspect ratio. I set it to 1 by 1. And then say OK. So now I have either one of these that they're exactly the same, square 1 by 1 or tutorial 1 by 1. There you go. So now that that's set by 1 by 1, now when I run my script, it will work properly because now it's going to be able to set that camera at its position, set this size to be exactly half and half of this square image, and it will do its thing. Now, final note on this before we look at the code. As I mentioned, this camera height is, my original note here says the height above the terrain that you want to have an offset in case you have, say, on the highest mountain peak, you have a radio tower. Well, you need to set this camera to be taller than that total distance. The tallest peak plus your radio tower, it has to be above that so that we can see the radio tower, right? Well, really, this is now height that makes it look good, unfortunately. So let me show you what that means. If I go to my main camera, and I'm going to pull back here a little bit. This is very slow because I'm recording at the same time, but I'm going to pull back a little bit here. Okay. And it's a huge world here. And I'm going to hit W to start moving around. Watch what happens over here as I pull this downward. So if I bring this closer to the terrain, you can see some changes start to appear. And the lighting just gets worse and worse and worse. And I don't know what's going on here. Now I'm getting a little bit better detail in some of my peaks and mountains and things. If I go too far, you'll see it starts to cut away the mountains because now we're looking into the mountain. We're at a height that it's no longer above the highest peak, which is why I originally had that as an offset. But you'll notice as I start to bring this up, the lighting gets a lot more evened out at the sacrifice of a little bit of detail from our scene. But I don't think that's such a big deal. It still looks really good and the lighting is even. I think that's more important. So salt to taste here, choose what you like. The default value here is based upon these exact settings. This is what I personally found to be the best, but you can change this and then run the script. So you could put it all the way down and run it. So it doesn't really matter. Okay. So with that all being said, let me walk you through the script a little bit for those of you who are interested. If you're not interested, then you can stop here if you want. Thank you for watching. You can go and just download the script. But if you want to learn a little bit, and that's what I encourage, let's take a look at the script, okay? So here we go. So I'm going to fill this out a little bit more before I give it to you guys, but just some notes about it and basically a text description of what I just said of how to run it. So here's all of our variables and setup that we went through. And we are using enums. So if you're not familiar with an enum, basically you set it up. So here I can set it up and I can set a value to equal to that. These must be text. So my enum is like a drop down. That's how you do the drop down list. This must be text. So I get away with the number because I put an X in front of it. So it kind of treats it like, oh, it's text, but it's not really. But I can tell it that it's equal to a value, which is just the value that it displays in text. And that's what we use in the code. Okay. Now, if you're interested in how I did that right click on the gear thing, so this thing here where I right click and say generate world map image, we do that right here. Context menu, generate world map image, just like that. So it's in square brackets and then in parentheses inside, and then inside of quotations, you put the text you want to appear, and there you go. It'll run this function, which it has to be right above the function. It'll run that function as that context menu. So first thing we do in the script is we say, hey, we're going to make this variable called map size. We're going to check to make sure the terrain's not empty in case you guys forgot to drag and drop it. We're going to get the terrain data. So we're going to say terrain.terrainData.size. And this size is a vector 3. So that's X, Y, and Z. So X and Z are kind of what you're used to with a map, like, length and width. but the Y is the height. So that's how we can get things like the tallest mountain peak, right? So we grab all that data, and then I'm going to say my width and height, I'm going to make them equal to each other. So here you see height equals width, but width is equal to casting to an integer value, so only whole numbers, the master texture size, which is this thing up here, this 4096 or 8192 that we chose. Now, if you wanted to increase this or add others, say we want to add a lower number, right? Let's do this. We'll do x 2048 equals 2048, comma, space. There you go. So I'll save that, and now that'll be part of the thing, and we'll take a look at that, okay? So now, this is setting this equal to both of those. Then our camera, our target camera position, we're going to center it to the world and put the height at that value you chose, okay? Then over here, we're going to say, hey, the orthographic size to our camera, remember, is going to be our map size .x. We don't need to do .z as well because they're equal. So .x divided by 2. Remember, I said it has to be half from the center point of the terrain out to the edge is half. So that's what we're setting here. We're telling the camera, yes, you need to be orthographic. And then we're saying your orthographic size is now equal to this value we just calculated. Okay. Now this part down here is the part that gets a little confusing, but I'll walk you through it. So this is where we are actually rendering the image and saving it. All right. So first we're going to make a render texture, which is you can tell Unity, take my camera view and save it as an image. All right. And we're just saying, make a new one of those and make it as big as we told you to up there, width and height. Okay. And then the 16 is the bit depth. You don't have to worry about that. So then we're going to set it equal to the target texture of our camera. So we're hooking it up to the camera so we can actually take a screenshot. Here we're making a new texture, texture 2D, calling it screenshot. And we're saying, hey, make a texture that's as big as our width and height. And here's the format we want you to use. And I think this is compression. So false. Then I'm going to say, go ahead and render that camera. Okay. Then we're going to say, okay, our render texture, the active one is the one we're using. We're going to get that. Now we're going to say, hey, for this texture, I want you to read the pixels of the new rendered image and put them into a rectangle that is starting at 0, 0. You go to the width and height and then 0, 0 for the other corner. So you have this rectangle that is really a square that is now the size of the rendered image we just took. Now set a bunch of stuff to not active anymore. We don't care about that anymore. We have the information stored in our brains, right? So we can turn the rest of this stuff off. We're going to destroy immediate our render texture. And then this byte array of bytes. So a byte is like a single bit of information, right? So we're going to say our screenshot that we have in our brains, let's encode that to a TGA file. And the reason I chose TGA is because it's a lossless format. It has no compression. So we get all the pixels as they should be. And that's perfect. Okay. Finally, complicated line here. System.io.file.writeAllBytes. What the hell? This is just saying, hey, we're performing a system operation, which is doing stuff with the computer and with Unity and with files, right? And we're writing all the bytes, all the stuff in our brain up here from the screenshot. And we're saying, where do we want to put this stuff as a new saved image, which is what we were doing here, right? Well, we're going to get the data path, which is, C my computer / Unity projects / Ultimate Battle Royale, or Uber is what we're calling it, right? So / my project, and then / screenshots, where remember you made the screenshots folder, and then it's going to say, put a little underscore, and then call it world map, and then TGA, because that's the format for Targa. And then what are we writing? We're writing the bytes, the stuff that we saved. Then right here, this says asset database.refresh means in our Unity project, refresh everything you see, just like we hit the F5 to refresh Windows. This is refreshing the folder inside of our Unity project. So now there we go. We're done. It's not that complicated. It's less than 100 lines of code. That's pretty awesome. So let's save that and then minimize this. We'll come back to Unity. It's going to compile a little bit here because remember we made that change. So we'll look at that change together. Okay. There we go. So now if I go back to my world map generator, we should have a new drop down here. 2048. So if we wanted to make a nice small image, we can do that too. So let's go ahead and do that. Now I've got some console thing. You can ignore this. I'm trying to get that to go away, but it actually is used. I think Unity's confused. So now let's do generate world map. This should be really quick and snappy. There you go. It's already done. And if you look at it, even though the maximum size we have set is 8192, that's as big as it can get. We've turned off our compression, but it's still only a 2048 by 2048. So let's see how this compares. So here's our 8192. And now if I go to our screenshots, and again, I'm going to refresh this and open this in Photoshop. Come on. Oh, it's saying update. Yeah, because it's the same file name. There we go. So now, look, I'm at 12.5% already. So if I zoom into 100%, you're going to see I don't get quite as much detail because it's a smaller image. But that's something you might want if you're doing like a mobile game. You want to keep things a little bit lighter, right? This is still a pretty good zoom. Maybe you could go twice that and do the 4096. But that would be the biggest I would go for that. And you can tell that it is that image because now when I zoom in, look here, we're getting, a lot of anti-aliasing here because it is a smaller image. But that's neat that you can just change it whenever you want. And you don't have to, if you want to have the bits and pieces of the image, I'll do that for the next version of the script. But you still have to assemble them. And I was getting problems with it's not capturing all the pixels. But this generates one big image for you and you can choose your options. For me, I'm sticking with 8192 because I'm making, a PC battle royale, to the nines. And then here with my camera, I set the right height. So I'm okay with a little bit of loss of detail of my terrain if it means nice, even lighting throughout my environment. I think that's going to be a lot better in the future. So there you go. So the script is all done. It'll be available in the download link at the base of the description there. And then also, again, wanted to give a shout out. Thank you so much for the patrons who have been helping us out with supporting the channel and helping with, they got a chance to do some advanced debugging for this script. And also, as a note, if you are interested in signing up for the Patreon, all of that goes towards, we're going to be hiring animators and maybe some concept artists and all that kind of stuff. We're going the full gamut with creating the Battle Royale. So all of that money goes into creating more content like this for you guys. So it's all worthwhile. And I thank everybody who can support. You by no means have to, but if you do, I really appreciate it so much. So guys, that's all I got for this week. I hope you guys have enjoyed. Thank you so much for sticking with me. The new year is coming and we are doing the revamp and we are going full out. I am learning Pun. I am up to my eyeballs in network code and you guys will be the beneficiaries of that. So thank you again so much. So until next time, keep practicing, get better, and I'll see you next time as the pilgrimage continues.